Hi, this is Ross Payton, here with a bonus episode of Night Clerk Radio. Every month, Burke and I record an episode just for our supporters on Patreon. This is one of our earlier Patreon bonus episodes, and this episode discusses corporate art and its influence on Vaporwave. We're releasing some of our older exclusive episodes to show you all what you get when you support us. We've been recording these bonus episodes for 5 years now, so we have a lot of content. Check it out on patreon.com/nightclerkradio. Enjoy this episode.
Hello, welcome to Night Clerk Radio, Patreon bonus episode 7, which I am tentatively calling Big Flat Vector People, quotes and or question mark. Before we get into that topic, though, just to our patrons, I do want to apologize that we missed one of the 2 episodes this month. Just some personal stuff happening, couldn't get it out. It's going to be redone and redone better. So talk about more about that at the end, but also at the front. But today, Ross, we are discussing, I don't know, is this like a pillar of Vaporwave type thing? Or do we just making fun of some bad art?
The way I think of this, the corporate aesthetics, I mean, it is obviously a big influence on Vaporwave, but I mean, influence on so much all around us, man. It
is everywhere.
Yeah. Something. They're coming through the walls, man. So, yeah, it is. This episode got started because of a website that was posted on our Discord, and quite interesting. The Corporate Aesthetic Research Institute. Sorry, Consumer Aesthetic Research Institute. And basically what they're doing is creating categories for corporate consumer art styles from the 1970s to now. And they have examples of it. They have descriptions of it. And it's real interesting to see all of these aesthetics, these styles you instantly recognize and can place the era that they were popular in, but you never knew that they had a name. Sometimes I think they're just naming them. They're giving them a name. But
sure. So specifically, I think, just to clarify, we're talking about like corporate art. And it's of every era, right? So I think we're going to maybe talk a lot about like the modern corporate art style, which has come up in like Corporate Wave episodes and Random Aesthetic episodes. But I think like starting with you, sort of what you're doing, a little bit of history, is it's important to remember that like every era has had its like safe, boring design. And again, I didn't even know what they were called until you sent me a Wikipedia article for one of them.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, is that what that's called? And I looked at, I like Google image searched. Was it Populux, right?
Oh, yeah. Populux is a book about the style of the 50s. And so it's coined the term popular luxury, because that was sort of the idea at the time. Yeah, we can go more into the history, and I can sort of like my thesis or my observation about like what started happening after World War II is the same shit still happening now, just in different ways. And this Consumer Aesthetic Research Institute stuff is like, oh shit, look at that. Yeah. So they're doing really good work. They have a Discord, by the way, which I joined today's research for this episode. And they have like separate channels for every single style. And so you can go there and just kind of see, oh, let's look at 90s. Oh, neon ooze. What's neon ooze? Oh yeah. Oh, Legends of the Hidden slime-drenched 90s Nickelodeon style. Haha, yes. As one example.
So wild. This is like that Twitter thread that was all the different design styles, architecture styles, I think, with someone explaining them.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't... Sorry, that's like off topic, but like, it's just...
Well, it's all related.
Yeah, until someone sits and compiles all this, I'm like, what the...
Yeah, no, it's... Once you start like reading... like. It really is the ultimate sort of invisible art or style or design or whatever you want to call it, because it's all around us and you don't realize that it's there until you read about it and it's pointed out to you, and then you can't not see it. It is really fascinating. So and Allegra, which is the style I think you were referring to earlier, which is the flat people with weird limbs and blue and purple, not real people colors, just fake safe colors. Yeah, we have to be diverse and inclusive, but without actually referencing real people.
Can't acknowledge they actually exist.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot to go on. So where do you want to start, I guess? Do you want to, I can do my history manifesto stuff first, or we can.
I don't know if I'm ready to hand over the mic for the rest of the episode yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I actually want to talk about staying on this topic of like fake diversity, which has kind of always been the goal of like just kind of being safe, but appealing to whatever trends are. And I think a lot of trends now are sort of towards like this diversity, intersectionality type stuff. I want to talk about this Airbnb article you dug up, Airbnb design, your face here. I think this like perfectly sums up soullessness in a modern way that people can understand, because it's very much like every face, every race, but it's hyper obsessed with like race and culture, because those are just easy visual signifiers. Like it's still reducing people down to nothing, but then also like doesn't really do like stuff like gender expression, or it talks about reflecting everybody, you know, for example, like disabilities, because they're 15% of the world's population, but none of them are on this page of examples at all. It's all just like, here's 6 different head shapes, 6 different jaw shapes, 6 different nose shapes. Combine those, they make everybody kind of off-white, and you're done.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a perfect example of like trying to be very systematic in your art. And I think it's, I don't know, I found it actually one of the more informative articles of how these thought processes work.
Well, you can see how like it reflects the corporate ideology of the time. And right now it's, you know, neoliberal global capitalism, which is to say capitalism everywhere and forever, but everyone's included in this. We can't be racist because that's markets that we would be leaving out. Right. So we need to make sure everyone feels included into capitalism. So the sort of hallmark of that is sort of like the symbolic gesture. Instead of like, you know, paying your people of color, you know, more money, give them something to make, show them in the art. Don't pay them more money. Why would we pay them more money? It's capitalism. We need to give money to job creators. That's what capitalism is about. But we can put them on the art so they feel like they're part of the team.
Yeah, I need that money to pay a bonus to the guy who discovered their market.
Yeah, exactly. And so people think that all businesses stays the same, but like businesses within the confines of capitalism, within the confines of corporation, there's a lot of different schools of thought and sort of sub ideologies of capitalism. And there's entire wars of influence and schools of thought about like how best to do business and like what should be done and how to spend money and how to reflect who we are and what we represent. This is the sort of the new dominant trend. But if you go back 20 years, it'll be different. 10 years, it would have been different. And, it reflects the true ideology. I don't know.
No, it does. It's like in the 80s when you just start to like fold women into more things beyond just being like housekeepers and shit. Because that was the rising market at the time.
I mean, for me, one of the biggest examples is, I mentioned the book Populux, and I won't get too much in there, but like it talks about one of the most iconic things of the 1950s are tail fins on cars. And there was a reason why they had tail fins on cars. And it was because they were in the first ones were because like, hey, look, our sleek World War II bombers and jets and planes. Aren't those cool? Well, let's make our cars look like the planes. The big one. Then it kind of spread into like, okay, well, this car has it. And well, now we'll give it to these other cars. So everyone feels like they have it. Now they're passe. But like, that was sort of like capitalism at the time. It was like, we won. Let's celebrate. Everybody can have stuff. And so like, that was reflecting the ideology at the time, which wasn't just like capitalism, but like triumphant capitalism and spending and spending to reflect who you are. So many products now are basically, there's like a handful of factories in the world that make any given product. There's like for all given types. And what they do now is they just slap on new branding and packaging to make them look different, but they're functionally identical. So for tons of different appliances, like all refrigerators, come from like 3 or 4 factories in the world, right? But like some of them have a tablet integrated into them. Some of them don't. And they put on different brand names.
My roommate and I do this for fun. If we want to get 2 things off Amazon that are clearly out of like the same factory, we just each order a different one and compare them. It's like you're getting water bottles and shit. Mine's like mine's Iron Flask and his is Cool Flask, and they're exactly the fucking same.
Exactly. The idea is that like branding and marketing is a way to reflect who you are as a person. And so corporations have created so many different styles to reflect ourselves by our water bottle purchases, for example. So these consumer aesthetics are the ways in how they do that.
And I think that really clicked with me like when I was in high school, because I have this distinct memory of this ad for like Staples, like the office supply store. And it was helping you as, you know, you're a new office worker and we're going to help you get your office all set up with one of 6 personalized options. And I was like, there's more than 6 people out there. So you can't have like, they can't be personalized if there's only 6 of them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was like when I was 12 or 13. I was like, wait a minute. This is all a lie. My Star Wars shirt doesn't make me cool.
It doesn't reflect who I am as a person. I mean, yeah, that's the thing is like back in the 50s, that was sort of revolutionary. That's sort of like what Populux is about, because you're going from pre-World War II to post-World War II, just, you know, huge seismic shifts in society and culture, right? But now we've kind of like, it's no longer so simple. We don't just buy things to show off our wealth in the same way we did back in the 50s. So they have to get more subtle. And it's also like infected themselves too. They really buy, I think a lot of corporations buy into their own, you know, ideology. They really believe this shit. So like how many venture capital companies believe they're saving the environment because of their, I really do like the kind of environmentally themed art that are in some of these styles. Eco beige from the late 80s to the mid 90s, stripped down, eco oriented 90s aesthetic where it's everything is in like simple brown style. Twine is used a lot on products. Things are packaged to look like birds' nests.
I'm looking at it now, and definitely check the show notes for this stuff because it's awesome. Yeah,
like that's the thing, and they probably those people who worked at those companies believed that they were making a difference. If you look at the related aesthetics too, which I really appreciate, they have things like Global Village Coffee House and Utopian Scholastic, which I think is one of my personal favorites. That's a very Vaporwaves style, because the center image is, of course, these like Infopedias and Encarta CD-ROM covers, and like basically every museum gift shop you've ever been in. I guess that's the best way to describe it, is museum gift shop. Just tons of tchotchkes that look vaguely edutainment. And even though they say it ended in the late 90s, I mean, you can still see that shit today, but like to a degree, it's just really fascinating. But like today, we mentioned Allegra, and I mentioned this game before, Going Under, which is a video game that parodies that. Like the entire game is done in that art style, but it's kind of dominant. I don't know when Allegra is going to disappear because it's so useful to tech companies now.
And I also feel like the change time for that is longer, like less innovation. Like, well, why pay for new art? Everyone likes this. And if that's all they see, then they won't want anything else. I just feel like it might also just stick around for a while.
Yeah. I mean, you can see, for example, they haven't really done anything on their website for consumer aesthetics. They only go up to like the 2010s. Because obviously we're still very early in the 2020s decade. But like on the Discord, actually, they mention a renaissance, a post-irony revival of internet awesome sauce, separated from the first wave by a cycle of Gen Z nostalgia for the early internet and hugely increased general cynicism. So like that would be, the lol monkey cheese randomness of early 2000s internet, mushroom badger, that kind of stuff. And then Gen Z Soft Club, Gen Z's revival of the Gen X Soft Club aesthetic, including fashion, photography, and design. So kind of nostalgia is dominating 2021 so far, weirdly enough.
There's always nostalgia cycles, but I feel like this one's a particularly bad one, like a deep cycle.
No, I think you're right.
It sounds like old man rambling, but like everything is being remade. Like just remake everything. New things are hard.
So to go into the history a little bit.
Sure.
So I want to read a paragraph from Populux.
Yeah, you got page marks and everything.
Populux does not consist of a single look. It's more of an attitude expressed by a family of looks, a series of options added to such utilitarian objects as a house or a car. As in most periods, mass tastes were often at odds with what was considered good taste or the educated taste. People who owned Studebakers and voted for Stevenson felt superior to those who voted for Eisenhower and bought Chevy Bel Airs. Yeah, so how little has changed? People who, drive a Prius and vote for the Democrats versus the, Ford pickup truck and voting for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of ways, very little has changed from the 50s. They talk about like the history of the tail fins, like I mentioned. They also talk about like how certain cars were designated as like the Chevy cars with the tail fins were designated as bombs, kind of like a blonde bombshell because they were linked to an actress, Dagmar. These functional, expensive to repair pieces of chrome, the Chevys, were known in the business as bombs, or more commonly Dagmars, in honor of an extremely busty, none too bright blonde bombshell of late night television. And of course, these beasts sold. Cadillacs had Dagmars for a decade, and several other automobiles makers adopted them as well. They were laughed at, but they raised sales. Yeah. Going also again to cars, I just remembered a book I also read a long time ago called High and Mighty, The Rise of the SUVs. And the SUV was heavily influenced by this French designer and consultant, Clotaire Rappel, who grew up as a child after World War II. One of his first impressions was German soldiers running away from an American tank. And so he decided that people were motivated by what he called the reptilian brain. Mm-hmm. And he just wanted to create the SUV to be the ultimate reptilian car for the reptilian brain. So make the exterior big and intimidating like a tank, but the interior to be as warm and comfortable as like a Ritz-Carlton hotel, like a really fancy hotel. My point with that is that, I mean, obviously all of these styles, all of these choices are just like, again, just ways to get you to buy the product, to buy into it. But they have different ways of arriving at that. Maybe they think that, they believe in this ideology so much that, progress, technology, our inclusiveness, everyone together, so you'll buy, right? Or just like they think you're controlled by your reptilian brain, so you'll buy. To tie this to Vaporwave recognizes that's kind of fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I've read these books before I got into Vaporwave and yes. I hope somebody writes an equivalent to Populux, but for more recent design trends.
Like the 80s nostalgia revival.
Mm-hmm.
But like in Populux, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking in terms of your like comfort duality for Vaporwave, or like comfort's a leather bucket seat in my Ford Suburban.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, that's why people buy,
Uneasiness is the car payment.
And the uneasiness is like, Rappel was like, build a car that like people will buy a car if they think in a crash that the other person will be more likely to die in.
Yep.
Therefore, I'll be safer. That may or may not be true, but it looks like it'll kill the otother person. So I'll be safer is the reasoning. I'll win that collision. So there's the anxiety. There's like, you bought something that'll kill people.
or like that latent anxiety that you will be killed.
Because you're not driving an SUV.
You're not driving the safest car possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, corporate aesthetics are really interesting to me. And I'm really glad that this website exists to sort of like shine light on, because it's such an obscure field. Like they don't like openly talk about this. You have to go and seek this information out. Like I tried to look to see if there's, an update to Populux, or like the Populux for the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s, and I couldn't find any. Yeah, it's just like, you have to imagine there's entire fields of people talking and living this stuff. They know it forwards and backwards because they're people designing these fucking weird ass Encarta logos.
Yeah, there are like psych majors and shit from high-end schools just trying to figure out exactly how to make people like maximally scared. We'll only have that fear assuaged by purchasing our product. Pepsi's the one that'll make you feel better because it's going to stop all the riots, not Coke. Or is it Coke? Which was the riot soda commercial?
I think it was Pepsi.
Yeah, that was Pepsi with Kylie Jenner. Like, I'm going to give a cop a Pepsi and he'll stop tear gassing us. And like that kind of corporate propaganda stuff also always appeals to me just because, I talk to a lot of people who are really embedded in it, kind of like my roommate or my parents or my brothers and stuff. And, they'll be like, I don't want to attribute any specific things to them, but people broadly in this country will be like, it's that damn Chinese propaganda, blah, 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 blah. And then stand in a choir and sing We Are Seers, right? Like,
oh God, you have to link to that too.
I will definitely include the We Are Seers. If you can stomach watching those 6 minutes, this is the podcast for you.
Those were actual employees too. Like they didn't just get models. They made a big point of like, oh, well, you be picked for the Sears choir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a video we watched recently. It's on YouTube, and it's like a 1986 Sears ad. It's like 7 minutes long, and it's the choir of Sears employees singing the praises of Sears and all its many divisions, from buying furniture to buying a house. You just buy it.
It's fucking better than your family.
Yeah, it is your family now.
Yeah,
yeah, that kind of like vertical integration of your entire life through Sears.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of not a thing anymore. Well, Amazon might be bringing it back.
I was just going to say the factory town may be back.
Yeah.
Which may or may not date this recording.
Yeah.
I think the main thing I'm having trouble with in this discussion is I adequately feeling like we're tying it back to Vaporwave because the connection is like so clear in my head, but still feels kind of abstract because like we've only talked about corporate wave a little bit, which kind of makes fun of the music side of this. And I don't remember if I linked it back in the corporate wave episode, but there's also a great video by Tantacruel. He does like music theory YouTube, and he did like corporate music, how to compose with no soul, and kind of goes over like how easy this stuff is.
Well, I mean, that's what like Vaporwave as a genre does. I mean, is to get into that corporate belief system that people get immersed in, like we're talking about the Sears choir. I think it's only a matter of time before that becomes a Vaporwave album. But like, I remember concept albums are based on like a Saturn training video or like a Saturn like promotional video, and they turn that into a album. So as an example of a Vaporwave album that is heavily influenced by corporate ideology, corporate aesthetics, I submit to you Saturn Audio System Demonstration Cassette by Wilson Arcade.
To make sure the Saturn would make it through anything anyone might do with a car, we considered what would happen if you found yourself in the Amazon in August. What if, quite by mistake, you stayed in Bombay through monsoon season? Or went camping in the Sahara and forgot your tent? What if you parked on the North Pole overnight, but the sun never comes? Or you never rolled out of your driveway in Chicago? You may be thinking you don't expect to be in any of these places anytime soon. Well, in that case, we even considered what would happen if you drove your Saturn to the nearest Dixie Mart to get some cherry vanilla ice cream.
Clearly took this cassette that was in the glove box of his 1997 Saturn SW2 and plunderphonics the shit out of it, pitch shifted it, made it sound weird. And it was this, you could tell that like people really believed in the Saturn back in the day. Like there are people who say, oh man, I miss Saturn. It was such a great company. Their cars were so great. And you could tell that the people who made that cassette to show off the Saturn car, they thought they were selling some hot shit. So I think there's one example. And I think there's a lot of other examples of Vaporwave music that sort of dives deep into this aesthetic and ideology, worldview, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think ideology works.
Yeah, because like they make this stuff to sell to people, but like that's the problem with grifting is that eventually you start to believe what you grift. Like you can't, it affects you too. You are not immune to propaganda. So you say like, oh yeah, we'll put in some eco beige shit to sell to those hippies, and like a year later, like, yeah, man, we're making a difference selling this.
More whales are surviving than ever.
Exactly. Yeah, vaporwave, is a way that people are like, man, this is kind of fucked up, isn't it? Yeah.
Now I'm clicking through weird corporate articles, and this is a little off topic, but I'm going to share it with everybody. So I guess somehow I got linked. I clicked through and I found I'm now on the UX Collective, UX being like user experience. And the top pinned article is Zuckerberg's Zeitgeist, a culture of shame, addiction, and dishonesty, and how better UX could solve the problem. Like, what? What?
Yeah, God, see that? There you go. There's the symbolic gesture of our current corporate ideology,
which is that ruining lives.
Yeah,
just redesign your app.
You can't make structural changes. You can't just give them more money, give them more power. But if you fix their user interface experience, it'll be just the same. Like we can't give you better voting laws. We can take a knee, or whatever. Like in Congress once. But we won't go to help you. Yeah. Yeah. I'm referencing to when the Democratic congressional leaders, I think it was both House and Senate,
definitely
took a
Pelosi
knee,
at least was there. Yeah.
Yeah. As a symbolic gesture to the murder of George Floyd. And it's just like, okay, you do that, but are you actually going to pass a law that's going to help people? No. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Great job. Great job. Speaking of great job, Tim and Eric would be another good, like perfect sort of distillation of corporate aesthetic and ideology.
Oh yeah, all their advertising and stuff for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's the people who are into vaporwave are the kind of people who are just like aware that this shit exists. That like there's thousands of people in all these corporations around the world whose entire profession is based on doing this. Like making these kind of aesthetics, making new styles. Cause like if you make a new sub style, if you go and if you're the guy who makes airbrush surrealism or austere urbane or boho chic, then like your company, you get a promotion, or maybe you can start up your own ad agency.
It's almost too much to think about.
I know. And like, I mean, there's literally dozens of these styles. There are.
Yeah. It's like 5 pages of 20.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's very good.
A lot of Yes album covers, a lot of Rush album covers in there. Some of that like pulp surrealist fantasy stuff.
And there's ones that like I never had a name for. Like if you look for Metal Heart, centers around the Metal Heart Transformer depth core aesthetic, popular from 1998 to 2004. I mean, they got like specific years, that 6-year period that shit was popular. But like if you're around during that time and you see these images, you're like, oh yeah,
it's just everywhere. That's just what you see. Yeah.
And then eventually morphed into McBling.
Apparently.
Yeah. God. And a lot of these are based on like the availability of tools at the time. Like I think Metal Heart became popular in part because Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator matured to such a point that these kind of designs were easy to make. These sort of like highly stylized photo collages that look like partly like the user interface of a movie computer, like the kind of,
Yeah. And I think, you could even tie that back to the modern sort of Solar Scope artists, the Lego stuff, because I think there's like some hypotheses that it really rose with the rise of mobile devices. So you can't have like super detailed, intricate design visible on like a little screen, right? Like if you're just looking at the Airbnb app, it doesn't need to have super, super detailed designs, but also it's art that can be easily vectorized. So that you can use it across. You got to have your global brand, right? We're on TV, we're on the web, we're on social media, we're on mobile, we're on tablet. You need to be able to have different display dimensions for all that. So you need art that scales well, and vectorized art does better than pixel art for that. So I think that's like an example of like a technological consideration that drives modern corporate decisions.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, going back to Populix, like tail fins also became popular because factories got more sophisticated and they were able, after World War II, like, oh, we could show off, we can put more chrome on cars because we have those resources now. We don't have to build tanks anymore.
We got all these little bent pieces of chrome that used to go on planes. What are we going to do with them?
Yeah, like, that's not exaggeration. Like,
repurposing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, think about like what corporation, like Metal Heart, 1998, 2004 is a very aggressive style, very like tech focused. And that was like sort of like the first .com boom. And that was like, and sort of the tail end of it. And also like going into Y2K and like
new metal.
It was more aggressive. And then sort of lasting only for the beginning of the war on terror.
Then it was really, we had to get real serious after.
But we didn't. Like, after that, it was also like McBling from like 2000, 2008. A shift away from the minimal futurism of the Y2K era towards maximalist remixes of 70s and 80s trends and motifs. Oversized designer glasses, designer rep jeans, pink Hummers, bedazzled electronics, McMansions, nihilistic and hedonistic overtones. Yeah, so Paris Hilton, Tuscan inspired everything. Oh, American flag inspired clothing post 9/11.
Sure.
So yeah, like after 9/11, we got more nihilistic and hedonistic because like the war on terror, man. Oh fuck, got to escape from that.
Somebody restarted history.
Yeah, somebody restarted history. The one design term we haven't mentioned that I really do want to mention is
skeuomorphism.
Yeah. An object or feature which imitates the design of a similar artifact made from another material. So super fucking popular in user interface designs, user experiences, you know, metal rivets on your software.
Yeah. And you're talking about like very literal recreation where like if your cell phone dialing was like looked like a number pad for a phone, it's very popular in like audio software because they'll like make UIs that look like the rack they're emulating, for example. So if this is supposed to be like, oh, you know, this is my DAW plugin for, you know, such and such 70s era compressor, it'll just look like you just like move all the little knobs and shit to give like literal examples of it. But I guess it's gone now. It's dead.
Well, that's the thing. See, this is another example of like how even though it's capitalism, even though it's corporate, you know, ideology, it still changes over time. Like it used to be the big thing, right? And now it's like, oh, well, that's no longer. Well, we got to innovate. We got to change. The only thing in the consumer aesthetic research is Genericana, 1920s to 1950s packaging, sign painting, fonts, and that's from the 80s to early 2010s. References to American vernacular and skeuomorphisms with negative space to denote premium feel and materiality. Yeah, so like the Domino's pizza box that you get now is Genericana as one example our listeners might be aware of, or Knob Creek whiskey bottles, bourbon bottles. Yeah.
Seriously reminding myself what these look like.
Yeah. I mean, if you think like for our listeners who might be more familiar with tech stuff, just think about like all the discussions about whether a phone should have a bevel or a notch, you know.
Yeah.
Should there be a notch at the top? Oh, is Apple going to do that? Should Android do that?
Oh, yeah. They can't take away the notch. It's what makes them stand out.
Yeah, exactly. And there's deep discussions in these corporations about whether or not they should have a fucking notch. It really matters to them. It's really important to them. And to the rest of the world is obviously just fucking navel gazing and ridiculous. This is the kind of stuff that Vaporwave makes fun of. This is the kind of the kind of mindset that Vaporwave, like it hasn't changed from like 1995 with dumb videos about your Saturn car system or dumb audio cassettes about your Saturn car audio system or the Encarta CD-ROM. I mean, yeah. So I find this stuff endlessly fascinating. And now that you're aware of it, listener, you won't be able to stop seeing it now.
Right. Look around. You probably will see plenty around you.
Yeah. Just look at Allegra, look at big textile. Then like, yeah, once you be aware of it, every time you see a design site, you'll think about like what kind of discussions they had. Like, how does this reflect them? Did they have focus groups? Of course they had focus groups. What do those focus groups say? How did they change it? And how many of these are like based on corporate executives just like trying to, I made them change it to do this now. Therefore, I made sure that they put bigger tail fins than fucking our competitors. Well, our car has bigger fucking tail fins. Fuck those guys. Or I had them take our tail fins off entirely. Fuck those other guys. It's really fucking neat. It's fascinating stuff.
It is, yeah.
What have you picked like a favorite out of all these design styles that are out here?
On this Kazi?
Yeah.
Oh, man. There's like 100. I'd have to go through. I think it's going to be the like academic, the school utopia one. I think has to be.
Oh, Utopian Scholastic.
That's it. Yeah. Utopian Scholastic. Sorry. I didn't have the website in front of me. I don't know why. I love all that stupid ass textbook stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just always really stuck with me as.
Yeah.
Or like just because I grew up with it, you know, like the neon slime of the 80s, like Double Dare and like early Nickelodeon and all that stuff is interesting. And then, or am I picking like my aesthetically favorite? Because I guess I'm thinking of like ones that I just am most familiar with. And then if I have to go with ones that are just like comic to me that they exist, it's going to be all of the really niche ones. You know, like we talked about the eco beige, that type of stuff.
I have to admit, I do like the fact that now I have a name for two I haven't mentioned so far: Hypnus Purgatory from early 2000s, early 2010s.
Okay.
Things associated with the hipster movement of the late Bush and early mid Obama years. Handcrafted objects, loose drawings, ironic tone in twee retro atmosphere. And then Indie Craft, which is also about the same era. Another hipster aesthetic of kooky, charming, over authentic visuals, handcrafted image. So that one's like, you know, Michel Gondry type things. Like everything's made of yarn or twine. The movie Dave Made a Maze. Little Big Planet. Oh, Little Big Planet is a very big one. So, and it's not like I'm a huge fan of those styles. I don't, that's fine, whatever. But I just like, now that I know that those were styles, like, it wasn't just the one thing. Like I do like the movie Dave Made a Maze. It's like, oh yeah, that's a whole ass style. So that's kind of like going through here and realizing like, oh yeah, that was a style. That was a whole thing. It wasn't just like a couple of one-off examples. There's also corporate grunge, which is taking the grunge look from the Pacific Northwest, and it's very ripoffs of, God, how would you characterize it? Like lots of collage stuff, kind of like a World of Darkness vibe, if you're familiar with that. Yeah, Frontline Assembly album covers. Yeah.
I'm looking at some of these interesting ones because if you like sort by, sorry, we're looking at a webpage together through the air. Some of these ones that like start in the 2010s and haven't ended yet, I think are the most instructive though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, then they have Vaporwave ending in the very late 2010s, which I disagree with. That's fine. But like corporate bougie, new brutalism. All this like obsession with sleekness. It's like maximally minimalist, I think is the term I saw somebody said.
Neoliberal vector minimalism.
There you go. I think that just about says it all. That kind of captures everything, huh? It's all just right there.
Yeah, cyber bougie. Tag yourself. Yeah, so you know, aesthetics and art, visual design has been linked to music for, you know, a long ass fucking time. And Vaporwave is sort of parodying things like cyber bougie. Well, not vaguely, but not quite. Cyber bougie is more recent. Yeah.
Yeah, cyber bougie is too recent, but it's almost like the parody becoming reality. You know, like the Onion stories used to not be real.
Yeah.
and now they're like, they're still not, but they could be.
Yeah.
They could be.
Yeah. Sorting them by when they ended in popularity, going back to see the ones that were popular, corporate Gen X cyber, I feel is probably the biggest Vaporwave inspiration, DVD menus, stuff you'd see in a Wired magazine from the late 90s.
Oh, fucking Wired. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah.
I do see a name on here in one of them. Googie Lounge Kitchen. Googie is actually a architecture style, but it's also like an art style for like interior decorating and stuff like that. And that was actually around the Populux style, around in the 50s, 60s. Very like inspired by the space age shit. the TWA terminal at LAX is a pretty big inspiration of it. Well, not it's the one in the theme building in the LAX airport, which you've seen before if you've ever been to LAX. So yeah, like there's another nostalgia cycle. Like that was a 50s, 60s styles and then came back in the 90s to inform shit like fucking Nickelodeon stuff.
Yeah. I feel like we can do this forever.
We could. I mean, it's fascinating. We should definitely do like a live stream at some point where we just like get chat to like ask us questions about what we think of these styles and just kind of provide a guided tour and pull up examples. I can talk more about like Populux and High and Mighty and stuff like that. But yeah, like it just think about like all the stuff that Vaporwave makes fun of and comments on is based on very serious people having serious discussions, deciding in order to sell, our ideology is correct. Therefore, we should promote it in order to sell to people, you know, like,
yeah,
you're included. We're not going to pay you as much as you're worth, but we're going to make our art represent you. Or like, we're going to the moon. Our cars could go to the moon with our fucking tail fins, you know, like it's all related, man. Yeah.
Never ends.
It never ends.
Ending on that note with literally zero irony, I'm going to go into the part where I talk about us. So, hey, listener, thank you so much for making it to the end of this surprisingly long discussion about corporate art. I really want to dig into this deeper. I really like your live stream idea. So maybe I'll think about making that happen. And thank you not just for listening, but also supporting, because you make sitting here on a Friday night talking about this stuff for an hour with my friend possible. So thank you. So next episode updates, main feed. Like I said, you know, we were going to do an episode on Barber Beats. That fell through for now. So our next episode on the main feed is a very serious discussion of a Vaporwave meme. And I'll leave it at that. And then after that, we're going to redo the Barber Beats episode and make it even better. It's going to be awesome. Actually, a really good discussion is going to come out of that. I promise you. And as for the Patreon feed, I don't know. I'll talk about it on the Discord. I'm sure there's some aesthetics or philosophy topic we can talk about. These things kind of pop into our head, not necessarily last minute, but sometimes a little last minute because we just think about something we want to talk about, which is cool because we have the freedom to do that. I'm going to assume that if you're here, you already know how to find us. Night Clerk Radio, pretty much anywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. So thanks again for all your support and listening, and we'll catch you next time.